Welcome to the Vegan Family Kitchen. My name is Brigitte Jem, and I am your host here and also the main cook in this real life kitchen. I am here today in the company of Karthik Sekar, who is the author of a fascinating book that I hope you will all want to dig into. It is called After Meat, The Case for an Amazing Meat-Free World. And heaven knows that I also dream of that wonderful after meat-free, amazing world. And I'm sure he will be helping us today get closer to that stage. Nice to see you, Karthik. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
I would like to introduce you first as a former bioengineer and systems biologist in academia. He now works as a data scientist in the alternative food industry. And we were just talking before hitting the recording button about how the industry has been transformed over the last few years, and it's gone from something really marginal that everybody thought was weird into really the mainstream of food. And it is exciting to think about the future together. So I'm really happy to have you here today. So do you have a copy of your book that you can show us? Because it's got such a wonderful cover. And I will, thank you. It looks beautiful. I love it.
Thank you.
And let's just start by talking about why, and you and I know the answer to this, but why do we need a world without meat?
Yes, so I'll start with the environmental. So I would actually argue that animal technology is one of our most destructive technologies environmentally. And this is kind of deceiving because I think a lot of people focus too much on emissions. And if you, of course, compare animal agriculture to, say, the transportation sector, it doesn't seem as bad as the transportation sector. And, so our knee jerk is that we need to fix transportation. But the biggest calamity from animal agriculture in terms of the environment comes from the land usage. So right now, more than 30% of the ice-free land on planet Earth is used for animal agriculture or is feeding animal agriculture. And if we're thinking about, climate change and how we're going to get to this, 1.5 degrees Celsius limit that has been discussed, so profusively in recent news, the best way we can do it is actually by diminishing animal agriculture, getting to more efficient technologies, as I write about, and freeing up this land so that we can revitalize forests. This is actually one of the easiest solutions for us to curb climate change.
So true, so true.
Yeah, and the second big reason, of course, is the ethical reasons. And I know that can be a very sore spot, with certain listeners, but I don't like to hide from it or shirk away from it. But animal agriculture is responsible for so much unnecessary suffering. And I think one of the things I try to stress is that in the long run we'll be able to have foods that taste better, are cheaper, more nutritious, and being better ethically and environmentally. So we can have a win-win.
Absolutely. That's beautiful. So the environment and obviously the ethics are the two main drivers for you that explain why we urgently need to look for a future without meat, right?
Absolutely. Yes.
That sounds so good. And now I want you to tell me how we're going to get there.
Yes. So I would say the biggest differentiator of After Meat versus similar books on similar topics is that I really emphasize this technological angle towards this transition. So I think as we just discussed, Bridget, there's these very compelling ethical and environmental reasons, but there are also very compelling technological reasons to actually divorce ourselves from animal products. And what I mean by that is if we look at a cow as a bioreactor to make goods that we use, those goods being meat, dairy, clothing, and we actually evaluate that bioreactor, the cow, in terms of metrics used in chemical engineering, we see that the cow actually performs she performs terribly.
Totally.
Yeah.
It's not an optimized system, that's for sure.
Not at all. 90% of what we feed her is, quote unquote, wasted. She grows slowly, taking at least, 9 months to, go from, calf to, something we, to this being we can turn into burgers. and she can't be innovated upon, that much more. And what
and
this
I just
means,
want to say we love cows for other reasons. There's other reasons to love cows, but their efficiency at creating food should not be one of them.
it's pathetic, absolutely. And I do take this very impersonal, approach to animals, but I'm actually trying to echo, I think some of these notions that a large part of this industry does have as well.
Of course, no,
and,
that's totally right. I mean, it is for many people an economic transaction, but once you shine a light on it, you realize it's not even a good one.
Exactly. Yes. Exactly. And yes, so just to finish that point, so a cow is just an incredibly inefficient machine to make goods, and really we have much more efficient machines to make foods. Actually, plants are that, and I talk a lot about this technology, microbial fermentation, which I think is going to really come to bear in the coming years, and potentially be a source of meat, dairy, and clothing.
Can you tell me a little bit more about that process without necessarily going deep in the technical details, but I'd like to have a better understanding of how it works.
Absolutely. So it's not a foreign process. This is not something that aliens have just beamed onto our planet. It's we're actually using it already for things like beer, wine. So the way we make beer is we take barley or wheat, we cook it, and then it's a sugar slurry, and then yeast will actually eat it and turn it into alcohol and CO2. And we can actually use the same sort of process to make other goods. So probably the most canonical example in the alternative meat world is corn, QUORN.
Yes.
Where they take these fungi and they actually grow it in the same sort of bioreactors as they do in beer. And these fungi make mycelium, which is basically this very rich protein material, and that can be fashioned into meat.
Right. That is very cool. So what are the other kinds of developments? I think you're currently working also in the cheese area. Is that right?
Yes. So my company, Climax Foods, is working particularly on dairy. We see dairy as basically the biggest opportunity in the alternative food industry. I think milks have gotten really good. I think even most of my friends who aren't vegetarian actually prefer oat milk when they go to the cafe. Right. Meat, ground beef, I think is getting pretty close to Impossible Burgers, Beyond Burgers. They're all really good, and and recapture that experience quite well. But cheese, quite frankly, has been pretty lacking. And the reason why cheese is so hard is because of the casein protein. So this casein protein is found in dairy milk, and it gives cheese all of its properties. So the stretchiness, the meltability, the being able to even form cheese in the first place is all dependent and hinges on this casein protein. And we just haven't found a plant analog to it, that can do all these same functions. And so my company, Climax Foods, we're taking data science approaches to try to, to really scan the plant world and try to find, really good dairy replacements.
Right. Soon. For cheese specifically, yeah. So the way you talk about it makes me extremely hopeful that we're almost there, right? Or that actually it's already there in many ways. And we can see there's so many interesting analogs now for anybody who would want to eat a meat-like product or a dairy-like product, with perhaps the exception of cheese. Although I'd say cheese has also made quite a bit of progress, definitely compared to the early 2000s.
Yes.
But there still obviously are a dominant meat, biological or animal meat on the market. What do you think are the obstacles that are getting in the way of those kinds of engineered analogs taking most of the space in grocery stores and leaving real meat to become a marginal product? What gets in the way?
Yes, and yes, this does get to another big differentiator of After Meat versus how I even think differently compared to the rest of the alternative food industry. So right now, I would say the biggest barrier is trying to get everything molecularly exact. So So what I mean by that is, we're gonna replace steaks, with these, cultivated, meat steaks where we have the stem cell for, a cow, and then we grow it into a steak. I actually think this is an absurd strategy. I actually think in the long run, this might not even be worth our time. I actually think the way this transition is going to occur is because we're actually making things that are actually better than anything we could do in the animal-based world. So what I mean by that is, if you look at, the traditional slate of vegetarian, vegan foods, so think about something like a falafel, right? When I eat a falafel, I'm not trying to, recreate the experience of eating, chicken shawarma or carnitas or anything like that. I just like falafel. It's really good.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's actually where I think this industry needs to go. We need to start thinking about foods that actually, explore this whole new space that we're just not even conceiving of right now. Things that, taste better or healthier, cost less than a steak, but when put side to side, we would never even want the beefsteak. We'd want this new thing.
Right. But why are we not there? You think it's just a matter of not having yet struck the right combo of biochemicals, basically, or is there something else that's stopping us?
I think it's really how this. I think the industry, the alternative food industry right now is really, really worried about customer perception. That drives a lot of the efforts. So companies will spend, hundreds of millions of dollars to try to, make casein to molecular exactness, because they want to be able to brand their product in a way to say that this is exactly like milk, but the only thing was that it was just produced differently.
Right.
And this compulsion to molecular exactness is what makes things so expensive and difficult. And I think actually, I think things would actually proceed much faster, and we'll get to this transition if that shackle wasn't there.
Right. So you're suggesting we should basically break free, have a disruptive innovation, kind of like one day Apple decided to make an iPod or something that did not exist and just make people want it. Is that kind of what you're talking about?
That's exactly what I'm talking about. And I'm actually already starting to see a few examples of this. So Bridget, you mentioned vegan cheeses, and you might be alluding to the fact that we just had to deal with Daya back in the
they're a Vancouver company, so I never say anything bad about them. I gotta say, my son will not have any other cheese than Daya.
Oh.
Because for him, that's cheese. He's as religious about Daya as some other people will be about real cheese, because that's his imagination of what cheese is. I come from French heritage, so obviously I would have seen things differently.
Yeah, and for what it's worth, Daya has come a long way. Like recent Daya products I've tried are much better than they were when I tried them 10 years ago. Yeah,
their goal, I gotta say, is to be free of allergens. Right. And so, yes, they do, they do make a cheese replacement, but their thing is that they have to be free of all of those allergens, which happen to be in many cases those that are typically used to make cheese alternatives. Right. So anyway, no bad words against Daya. I love them for what they are. I respect their mission. I think they're doing awesome work and great pioneers. But yes, not convincing alternative for many original cheese lovers. Right.
Absolutely, and yes, they do solve a problem, but they don't solve the problem of that original cheese replacement.
Exactly.
And I was getting to Miyoko's. I think is sort of the newer game in town, and they're a little they're I would say a step up in terms of recreating that cheese experience. And they recently developed a liquid mozzarella, right? So it comes in a bottle, and And so if you're making a pizza, you're not actually having to deal with shreds anymore. You just put your sauce, and then you just pour it on. And actually, I think it's actually a great example of this this new territory of food that is pretty intriguing.
Yeah, they've broken apart from the packaging. I mean, I do the same thing when in my meal plans I put pizza. Normally I don't recommend people use shreds, although in a bind it's okay. But usually I say drizzle cashew cream on top. I mean, you don't need cheese. You need something on top of your pizza that's a different color, right? And that has a different experience. I think we're often thinking that we need cheese, for example, on top of a big dish of spaghetti bolognese, vegan bolognese. You kind of want to have Parmesan, but no, you don't need Parmesan. You need something else with a different texture and a bit of umami.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so I love this idea of disrupting the existing containers of food and going forward with the new forms, right? Why not? So tell me a little bit more then about the nutritional implications of the switch that you're talking about.
Yes. I know that, the big worry here is that we're creating, quote unquote, frankenfoods or engineered foods. And, there are many ways, to reach this end. I don't want to use the term skin the cat because, I'm against it, but, there are ways we can get here without, necessarily doing bioengineering, but, in full disclosure, I do think bioengineering is something we need to consider. And I do talk about that in the book, but I don't think we have time to go into that fully. So I'll just pay it lip service in that way. And so what I think, though, is that with these new foods, we actually have the opportunity to have more customizable nutritional personal foods for personal nutrition. So we can think about, say, for example, an older adult who is struggling to, get protein content or to really get enough protein, metabolized in their body. So I could imagine that, we have a 3D printer, that, prints out their vegan steak, and it's fashioned in a way that it's actually more digestible for them. And, technically it is, quote unquote, frankenfood and processed, but, I think we can be a little bit more precise here and say, for, some specific, aspects of health, it's actually satisfying a need.
Right. And so what about just the average person with no particular nutritional needs, meaning, we all need to have fiber and eat our vegetables, basically, right? So how do you see the difference between those new forms of, I don't even know how to, this after meat future, let's just put it that way. How do you see day-to-day nutrition happening? Like, what would those new foods be made of in terms of nutritional content?
Yes. So the new foods, I suspect, are really going to be replacing like the processed meats, like first and foremost. Right. So, doing a McDonald's quarter pounder to an Impossible Burger. Right. Yeah. And, I don't see, for example, things like, fresh fruits and vegetables going away anytime soon. Okay. Yeah. So, and, I think, in some ways, like the fact that we call things like the Impossible Burger and the Beyond Burger plant-based is a bit, misleading because, as you talk about, Bridget, I know, one of the benefits of plants and plant-based diet is the fiber content, right? Mm-hmm. And, if you eat a Beyond Burger, that completely goes away and, defeats, right. That aspect. And so, yeah, so a Beyond Burger is not going to replace a bowl of a salad, for sure not. Right. Okay, so we're seeing it more as a complement, maybe to, or do you think sometimes that they might be transitional foods to some extent, just to get more people to eat more plants? Is that part of the strategy, you think? Like part animal product, part plant-based? No, just like, instead of buying a meat, ready-made meat patty, I just buy a ready-made non-meat patty or after meat, post-meat patty, right? Is it mostly that niche that you're thinking about? I mean, it's not even niche, it's the dominant part of the grocery shopping market, right? Yeah, so like going from like, say, a beef burger to totally, like a Impossible Burger to like, more a whole food diet. Possibly, right. I mean, so I guess my question beyond this is, why not just skip the middleman? Like, why do we need a bioengineered meat when we can just have lentils or chickpeas? Yeah, so So I think, I think honestly, just like for a lot of the population, it just might be a no-go. I totally grant, for probably like 95% of people, that's going to be better, in terms of health, just going straight to lentils, going straight to, leafy greens. But, I do think, I myself definitely have the struggle. Like I consider myself like a 50-50 junk food vegan, whole food vegan,
Right.
and I even try to, split it up in a way where, I make sure I have a salad at least for lunch every day, but then for dinner, I'll have my, I'll have my Impossible Burger, right?
Right. Yeah. So do you, I wonder if, I'm sorry, because as I was mentioning, I didn't manage to finish reading the book. I don't know if that's something you talk about. Can we build into those meat products more, for example, vegetable-like features?
Yeah.
You were mentioning leafy greens. I mean, I occasionally, when I have too much, I dehydrate extra greens and I make a powder and I kind of sneak the powder here and there and nobody notices. I'm wondering if there's a way that meat can be improved, not animal meat, but post meat could be improved to have more vegetable-like features without necessarily impacting the taste or, culinary experience.
I think that would be awesome. Like if we had something that straddled the fence of like a Impossible Burger and like, but it was like, but we doped in some, fiber, like some fiber from like spinach or something. Yeah, that sounds amazing to me.
Is it something that can be done, you think, as part of this same kind of technology process?
Yeah, I don't see any reason why that can't be done.
Right. Okay, that's cool. I mean, if we can add supplements, nutrients to supplement various foods like vitamin D and milk, I guess we can do more and better. I mean, that would be great. It would be if we can make a meat with fiber. In Vancouver and in British Columbia, we have a plant butcher called the Very Good Butchers, and they make burgers that are actually made of beans, and they certainly don't look like a Beyond or an Impossible Burger. Like they do look a little bit more like a plant-based patty, but they're very satisfying and have been quite popular with the people I've tried them with, but they're made of beans. And I like that because then they really have a substantial amount of fiber and nutrition that makes you feel like you're ticking some of the boxes.
Yes.
More than just having a meal, right?
And I think honestly, like we're gonna have a lot of choice. We're not gonna. It's not just I think some people are definitely gonna want that
Yes.
very greasy, meaty replacing the quarter pounder type of thing. But I could totally see a lot of people also springing for something that's something in between.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a vast market anyway, so there's going to be a lot of different competing, and I think it's wrong. Just like it's wrong to say there's only one good type of activism. Once in a while there's a vegan protest of sorts, and there's all the people that say, "Oh, that's the wrong way to send a message." Well, it's the right way for some people, and it will stick with them, and it will maybe turn off other people. And for food, it's the same thing. Different strokes for different folks, and we're looking at people at different stages of their journeys as well, and in their ability to cook, even in their cooking facilities. Some people don't even have a kitchen, right? And what are they going to eat that's a little bit better and hopefully more efficient than the current animal-based meat? On that topic, I want to ask you maybe a last question is, what are the environmental implications of those new post-meat kinds of products? What kind of inputs are required to make them? How efficient is it? Obviously, it cannot be worse than cows, but what are we looking at in terms of environmental impact?
Yes, thanks for asking. So for example, if it's a microbial fermentation, so like using the corn example of just creating mycelium and fashioning that into, say, a hot dog. So I calculated, the specific numbers are in the book, and I kind of walked through that if we could do say all of animal ag to, say, microbial fermentation, we basically free up more than 99.9% of the land that we use.
That is huge. That's enormous.
That is the level of performance differences we're talking about between animal-based production versus these, for example, microbial.
That sounds like it might be even more efficient than actually eating the lentils, no?
Yes. Oh, well, yeah, the details do matter here, but it might not necessarily. So of course, like if we grew the lentils and then we had that lentils feed the microbial process, then definitely not. But if we had some sort of like very productive plant feeding the microbial process, then it might. Yes.
So interesting and fascinating. Well, let's hope that we keep on moving forward. I like that your angle is the technology challenge of creating those appealing and superior meat-like products compared to meat. I come at this as a sociologist and looking at the social, economic, policy level kinds of obstacles, and I really hope that we manage to burst through both kinds of barriers to produce a real food that is better in every regard. And I'm so grateful and delighted that good people like you are working hard on this at the moment. Thank you so much for doing that. Before we part ways, I would like you to tell us where people can learn more about your work, how they can get your book, and how to keep on stay connected to your great ideas.
Thank you. And thank you, Bridget, for having me on your show. It's been a pleasure. And thank you for all the great work that you're doing, helping
That's
people,
very kind.
Adopt a, more plant-based lifestyle. Yes, so aftermeatbook.com is my website. And the book is available at most online retailers. It is also available on smashwords.com. And I don't want money to be a barrier to access. So people can actually download it for free. I don't even know who does this, so don't worry about me identifying you. And all the profits are going to charity. So this was really written to get the world excited about this transition. And whatever it takes, then let's do it.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. So aftermeat.com.
Aftermeatbook.com.
Aftermeatbook.com, excuse me. I will put the link in the show notes, and also with every other opportunity, I will make sure to share about your book. Thank you so much for your work, Karthik, and I wish you all the best with developing those amazing post-meat products so we can have, I quote, an amazing meat-free world. Thank you so much, and thanks everybody for listening, and I look forward to seeing you again very soon in the Vegan Family Kitchen. Take care.
Thank you. Bye.